Welcome back, fifth grade. We are now about to dive into this poem, Cleopatra, stanza by stanza. Now remember, we are looking for the literal meaning of each stanza in this poem. In front of you, you should have your T-chart with a total of 8 boxes. The boxes to the left should be numbered stanza 1 through stanza 4. The boxes to the right is a space so that you can write the literal meaning of each stanza. Before we begin, if you notice on the poem, there were some words at the bottom of the page. Those words are the footnotes. Those words are, yes, the footnotes. We are going to review the footnotes before we actually start our poem. Number 1 is serpent and scarab. Cleopatra wore a small piece of jewelry that had a design of a serpent and a scarab, which is a beetle. And Egyptians believed that it had magical powers and it could protect whoever wore them. The second is cleaves. It means to split apart or to sever. And the third one is clings, and clings means to hold on. And the last word is perish, and it means to perish or to die or end. So scholars, we are going to see these words be used throughout the poem. We're moving. For our very first stanza, scholars, I am going to read the stanza aloud and then provide you the opportunity to write what you think the literal meaning of the stanza is. This is stanza 1. Her mouth is fragrant as a vine with birds in all its boughs, serpent and scarab for a sign between the beauty of her brows and the amorous deep lids divine. So scholars, we have just read this stanza. First, let's talk about who the her is. Who's the her that they're referring to? Cleopatra. So as we read the stanza, I'm going to give you a time to reread the stanza on your own. And as you're reading it on your own, think of the literal meaning. What is the stanza talking about? What is the true meaning of this stanza? Go ahead, take some time, reread the stanza. Now that we've reread the stanza, remember that a scarab is a beetle. Let's think, what is it that this poem is really, or this stanza is really saying? I'm going to give you 1 minute. You are now writing on your notes the literal meaning of stanza 1. You have 1 minute. Scholars, this is not an ACE response. It can be 1 or 2 sentences. We're keeping this short. Again, it is not an ACE response. 1 to 2 sentences. You have 20 seconds. All right, scholars, now that we have completed that, I am going to share with you my thoughts on the literal meaning of this stanza. My literal meaning is that Cleopatra has a very beautiful face. The reason I wrote that Cleopatra has a very beautiful face, the author writes her mouth is fragrant as a vine. Um, they talk about the serpent, and again, we just read that Egyptians thought that it had these magical powers. Um, for whoever that wore it. So it is talking about her beauty. Then it says, between the beauty of her brows. So here are our brows, and between the beauty of our brows is our face. So my literal meaning is that Cleopatra has a very beautiful face. They also use the word divine. I'm going to give you a few moments to revise or add to your literal meaning. And scholars, as you can see, I kept my literal meaning one sentence. We're moving. Stanza 2. I am going to read this aloud. Now, if it helps you to close your eyes so that you're able to visualize the words in the stanza, feel free to do so. We'll then, after reading the stanza, we'll take a moment to write the literal meaning. Stanza 2. Her great curled hair makes luminous her cheeks, her lifted throat and chin. Shall she not have the hearts of us to shatter and the loves their end, to shred between her fingers thus? So that is stanza 2. I'll read it again. Her great curled hair makes luminous her cheeks, her lifted throat and chin. Shall she not have the hearts of us to shatter and the loves their end, to shred between her fingers thus? Scholars, take 1 minute and write the literal meaning of this stanza. Again, just to name the her in the stanza, if you look at the title, it is about Cleopatra. 1 minute, let's go. You have 30 seconds. All right, scholars, I am going to share what I wrote as the literal meaning for stanza 2. I wrote that Cleopatra's hair and face are beautiful. She has the power to break hearts. Now, the power to break hearts come towards the end of stanza 2. To shatter and the loves therein, to shred between her fingers thus. Or we can even go up. Shall she not have the hearts of us to shatter and the loves therein to shred between her fingers thus? So, scholars, as you can see, I kept it short. This is a total of 2 sentences to express the literal meaning of stanza 2. I'll give you a few seconds to add to or to revise your literal meaning. I'll read aloud while you're taking that moment. Cleopatra's hair and face are beautiful. She has the power to break hearts. All right, now that we have our literal meaning down, so before we move on, scholars, in front of you, you should have the completed literal meaning for stanza 1 and stanza 2. We are now going to work on stanzas 3 and stanza 4. So in stanzas 3 and 4, scholars, I am going to read aloud the stanza. You will then in return write your literal meaning for stanzas 3 and 4. During your independent time, you will have to submit your answers and your responses for the literal meanings of stanzas 3 and stanzas 4. And stanza 4. Stanza 3. You see against her throat the small, sharp, glittering shadows shake, and through her hair the emerald curled likeness of the river snake, whose bite shall make an end of all. Kind of reminds you of what the Romans thought of her. Let me read it one more time. You see against her throat the small, sharp, glittering shadows shake, and through her hair the emerald curled likeness of the river snake, whose bite shall make an end of all. Scholars, you're now going to take 1 minute. You're writing the literal meaning. All right, scholars, we have now completed the literal meaning of stanza 3. We're moving. Stanza 4. Again, I am going to read aloud stanza 4 for you, and then you will write the literal meaning. Stanza 4. She treads on gods and godlike things, on fate and fear, and life and death, on hate that cleaves and love that clings, all that is brought forth of man's breath, and perish with what it brings. One more read. She treads on gods and godlike things, on fate and fear and life and death, on hate that cleaves and love that clings, all that is brought forth of man's breath, and perish with what it brings. Scholars, you are now going to take 1 minute to write your literal meaning. Your time has started. You have 30 seconds. Again, we're keeping these short, 1 to 2 sentences. Ten seconds. Okay, scholars, you just have completed writing the literal meaning for stanzas 3 and 4 independently. So in front of you, you should have a completed T-chart with stanzas 1 through 4 to the left of you, and then the literal meaning of those stanzas on the right of your T-chart. Scholars, it is now time for you to complete your independent practice. Now remember, doing independent practice, you are only rewriting your literal meaning for stanzas 3 and stanzas 4. Again, in your independent practice, you are rewriting the literal meaning for stanzas 3 and 4. Scholars, I cannot wait to read your responses. Be sure that you have fun this weekend. Stay healthy, and I will see you on Monday.